Now, the big question ahead of Game Week 29 is, should you use your free hit chip? And I'm going to try and help you answer this question in this video. I'm also going to look at, if you should use your free hit, the best draft that you can put together. And regardless of whether you're free hitting or not, I think the captaincy is wide open this week. So I'm going to talk through who I think is the best captain. These are my thoughts ahead of Game Week 29. Alright, starting off the video then, we're going to ask the question, when should you use your free hit and when might you want to avoid it? So obviously there's no straight answer to this question, right? It depends on the nature of your team and the situation of your season. So what I thought I'd do is just present some scenarios when I think it's good to use it and when it's good to avoid. We'll start off with when I think is the best time to use the free hit. And I think it's if you don't have a good amount of midfielders and forwards. This week, when you look at the fixtures, right, we've got 4 fixtures going ahead. Burnley, Brentford, Luton Forest, Fulham, Spurs, and West Ham v Aston Villa. And when you look at the clean sheet odds, these are courtesy of Draft Hound. You can see here, the best team, the most likely team to keep a clean sheet is Brentford, right? They've got Burnley away, and they have a 31% chance of keeping a clean sheet. All the rest of the teams are below 30%. So I'd say there's going to be a lot of goals this game week, as we've seen across this season so far in the Premier League, right? So I wouldn't necessarily worry about being loaded up on defenders, but if you can't make a full set of midfielders and forwards, or you're sort of 2 or 3 short, I think it's probably best to use your free hit just to capture the sheer amount of goals that are probably going to be scored this week. I'd also say another opportunity to use it is if you can't easily bring in your favourite captain for the week. Captaincy is so important in my opinion in FPL, and if you don't have a good route to getting a decent captain in, probably time to use the free hit to enable that. I'd also say just in general, I'd feel a bit uncomfortable fielding less than 8 players and taking more than a -8 to build a team that I liked. I think those 2 circumstances would make me feel quite uncomfortable, and in those circumstances, I think I'd probably play the free hit. When I'd avoid it, well, quite simply, if you can see a better opportunity to use the chip later on in the season, we'll flash up the fixtures here. So if your chip strategy means that potentially you're looking to use your free hit to maximise your chances in double game week 34 or double game week 37, then probably a good idea to use your free hit then. Also, if you can already field a good team of, I'd say, 9 to 11 players, you can miss 1 or 2 in my opinion and be absolutely fine. I think that's all right. And again, if you have a good set of midfielders and forwards that are going to start for you to capture, like I said, the sheer amount of goals that I think are going to be scored this game week, then I think you're good to go. So what I thought would be useful is to put together what I think is the best free hit draft. And just before I do that, there's some tips and advice I wanted to give out that for some people, these might be obvious and you might know them already, fair enough. But to some, they might not be so obvious and might be useful to hear this before I share the draft. So obviously, when you play your free hit, in game week 30, your team will revert to as it was in game week 29 before you played the free hit, right? And once you've hit the chip, it cannot be cancelled after being confirmed. And whatever level of free transfers you have going into game week 29, you will always get 1 free transfer the following game week. You'll always end up in game week 30 with 1 free transfer. Now, you can make a transfer in game week 29 and activate the free hit, but your transfer you make before activating the free hit will not apply the next game week. That's basically what the long sentence there says. And also your non-free hit team, so FPL will remember your non-free hit team as kind of like a ghost that follows you throughout the game weeks. That's still going to be affected by whatever price changes happen over the next couple of weeks. Just thought I'd get that bit of admin out of the way. Alright then, so here is, in my opinion, my favourite free hit draft, with one exception. I'll go through him first off. It's Sergio Reguilon. Now, Thomas Frank, he left him out in game week 28 saying that he had a minor hamstring injury, but should be fit for the Burnley fixture. In my opinion, Reguilon is probably the best defender in the game for game week 29 when you think of his likelihood to start, his likelihood to get a clean sheet, as we saw Brentford have the highest clean sheet odds of any team in the league for game week 29, and also his chance of getting attacking returns. You know, he's been really advanced playing at left wing back for Burnley, and for that reason, I think he's probably the best defender in the game. And as you can see there, the expected points totals kind of agree with that. Flecken in goal, like I said, Brentford have the highest clean sheet odds facing Burnley, so you might as well go, in my opinion, for the goalkeeper with the highest chance of keeping a clean sheet. And regardless of whether he keeps a clean sheet or not, he's pretty good for making saves. I don't think he's the best goalkeeper in the world by any stretch, but he does have a decent amount of saves per game. So I think, again, similar to what I was saying about Reguilon, he's my favourite goalkeeper for chance of a clean sheet and likelihood to get saves bonus. So hopefully his expected points and points total come the end of the game week are the best. Porro, I think, is just the best Tottenham defender. I think it makes sense to go for a Tottenham defender rather than 3 Tottenham midfielders, because I can't put my finger on 3 Tottenham midfielders that I can absolutely guarantee are going to start. Maybe Kulusevski, but he's not the most exciting in my opinion. And then I went for Doty, purely on the fact that I don't think there's going to be many clean sheets to go around. So you're best off picking the best attacking defenders, which is actually what I've done here, right? I've not really banked on clean sheets happening. I've picked the 3 best defenders, I think, for chances of attacking returns. Obviously, Reguilon and Flecken for clean sheets as well. Son, Douglas Luiz, Bowen and Maddison in my midfield. Bit of a benching headache with this team, whether you select Douglas Luiz or Leon Bailey. I think Leon Bailey from open play is definitely better than Douglas Luiz, but I would have worries about his minutes. Even if he starts the game, he will usually be subbed off around the 70-minute mark, as we've seen. Whereas Douglas Luiz is a nailed-on 90-minute player and he takes the penalties for Aston Villa. The one smidgen of doubt that there is around Douglas Luiz now, though, and it kind of makes Bailey a more attractive prospect than he was before Game Week 28. John McGinn got sent off and he's going to be suspended for Game Week 29. So what position will Douglas Luiz play in as a result? Not really sure. Will he go a bit deeper or continue playing in this sort of goal-scoring midfielder number 6 role he has been? I don't know. That's kind of just a shade of doubt. Son, I'll talk about captaincy towards the end of the video because it doesn't really matter what my opinion is. I wanted to share some stats and expected points data as well to back up my opinion. I've gone for him as my captain. I think all things considered, he's the best option to go for. But like I said, I'll talk about that a bit more towards the end of the video. Then Bowen and Maddison as my other couple of midfielders. Bowen, I mean, he's in fantastic form for West Ham this season, right? Probably having his best season in the Premier League so far. Villa, they're not the best defensively. As you can see there, I haven't got a single Villa defender in my team. I think he's got a good chance of scoring against them. And James Maddison scored in Game Week 28, and I've got to say, he looks focal to everything Spurs do from an attacking perspective. Goals and assists, Fulham away as his fixture. I think he's going to get some good points. Watkins, Toney and Morris up top. I've gone for Toney and Morris. I really like Toney as an option this week. 90-minute man on penalties. Brentford's of his talisman, and he's got a really nice fixture against Burnley. Morris, he's not really done that great in Game Week 28 so far, but I just think the fact he's nailed on for 90 minutes and takes penalties, he just gets a chance of scoring in any game that he plays, right? And then Watkins, he's not a penalty taker, but he's a 90-minute man, and I believe still the top scoring player in FPL, right? So it's impossible to leave Watkins out of this team. I think he's an absolute shoo-in. I mean, the bench, like I said, there's one little benching headache between Bailey and Douglas Luiz. Let me know in the comments who you'd rather play. Areola is my bench goalkeeper. I mean, why not? Makes sense. Emerson, I feel like it's worth covering a bit of West Ham defence. And likewise, Williams for Nottingham Forest. I'd say under Nuno, Nottingham Forest don't actually look that bad defensively. We all know that Nuno is a pretty good defensive coach, and he seems to have gotten Nottingham Forest into quite a well-drilled setup. So yeah, for that reason, quite like the thought of going with Williams. Maybe for some people, like the likes of Murillo, Williams, other good Nottingham Forest defenders, of course, available, you might want to start a Forest defender over some of the guys I've gone for. But for me, like I said, I favoured the defenders with the likelihood of attacking returns. And yeah, I'll stop talking now. That's the free hit draft. And like I said then, the captaincy is quite an interesting one this week. And for me, I think there are a few options to go for. Son and Watkins, definitely 2. It doesn't show it on the draft hand expected points, but I really like Toney as an outside chance as well. Personally, I'm favouring Son because I think he just has the strengths of all those players combined. You know, Toney, I pick him as my captain because he's got a decent fixture. He's a 90-minute man. He takes penalties and he's the talisman of his team, right? Watkins, he ticks all of those boxes, apart from the fact he doesn't take penalties. I've got to say, I'm a little bit hesitant to pick a non-penalty taker as my captain. And Son, he ticks all the same boxes as Toney does, and I think he's just slightly better. He's on penalties, plays 90 minutes, and he's got a really nice fixture. You know, Fulham are not the best defence, and I think for that reason, he's my favourite captain. And this is what the draft hound expected points show, interestingly. Like I said, Toney doesn't even appear in the top 5, which is quite interesting. Son, Watkins, Bowen, Maddison, and Douglas Luiz is the order that draft hound have gone for. And then FPL review, which I also consider looking at for expected points and captaincy decisions, etc. They've got Son as the top player, Tony in second place, Watkins in third place, followed by Maddison and, if he's fit, Richarlison. That's one thing to look out for, actually, separate to the captaincy discussion. I remember Richarlison saying in one of his interviews in a previous game week that he was hoping to be fit for game week 29 of these fixtures just before the international break. I'd say question marks as to whether he actually will be, but it's worth watching out for that news because if he is fit, I think he's probably going to start and he's a really good option to go for. Yes, he'll be playing on the left wing. Yes, he won't be taking the penalties anymore. But the goal scoring form he was in for Spurs before he got injured, I think warrants considering for your team. But yeah, the FPL review captaincy has it for Son. And I really like that option. Like I said, he's my captain and I think he ticks all the boxes that you want. However, I do think, and it's a general consensus I have, on weeks where there are multiple captaincy options and it's a little bit unsure as to who to captain, those are the weeks where you can go different and really make some ground. You know, the weeks where Salah or Haaland have a nailed-on really good fixture and everyone's captaining him, those aren't necessarily the weeks to go different, right? Because the backfiring can be much bigger than the reward of it going right. But this week, I think there's smaller downside to getting the captaincy different, or to going different, sorry, with the captaincy. And my second favourite captain this week is Tony. I think he's on penalties, plays 90 minutes, the Brentford talisman, and he's got a really nice fixture against Burnley. Personally, I think Burnley are pretty hopeless in the Premier League this season. One of the worst teams in the league by far. And Tony's one of the best strikers in the league, right? Don't get me wrong. In terms of actual playing ability, I don't think there's obviously a difference between the players, but I don't think there's a whole lot between Tony and Son in terms of ability alone. I really like Tony as an option if you're chasing and looking to go a bit different. All right, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that. A little bit shorter than my usual game week thoughts video, but ultimately, gotta say, there's a bit less to think about other than the free hit. So yeah, I haven't tried to drag out the video for the sake of it. I've kept it short and gone through the info as I usually do. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave me a like rating. Like I said, let me know in the comments your thoughts on my free hit draft, if there's any players I've left out or need to include, and also who you would start out of Douglas Luiz and Bailey. I do think, particularly with that McGinn injury, it's a little bit up in the air as to who should be starting. Like I said, gone with the tried and trusted and minutes guarantee of Douglas Luiz so far. And if you wanted to see more content from me, of course, you can subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be around there on screen. And until then, I'll see you in the next video.